When I woke up this morning, I was not expecting to see what I saw. Grand Theft Auto 6 just got delayed again.
Are you serious?
For the second time. And I've got to say, this might be the most predictable gaming news story of the entire year. If you had told me 6 months ago that GTA 6 was going to hit its original release date, I would have laughed you out of the room. This is Rockstar we're talking about. They've perfected the art of the delay more than any other studio in existence. So, here's what happened. Originally, GTA 6 was supposed to drop in fall 2025. That was the promise. That was what we were all looking forward to. Then earlier this year, they pushed it back to May 2026. Okay, fine. A little disappointing, but we can work with that. It's only a few months, right? Well, apparently, May 2026 wasn't good enough either because now the game has been delayed again to November 19th, 2026. That's right. We're now looking at a November 2026 release date, which means we've gone from fall 2025 to literally over a year later. And before we go any further, if you're as frustrated about this delay as the rest of the gaming community, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any updates on this absolute circus of a release schedule. Because at this rate, we're going to need a support group for people waiting on GTA 6. Who thinks we will see new consoles before Grand Theft Auto 6? Let me know in the comments. Now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not inherently against game delays. In fact, I think game delays are often necessary. We've seen what happens when games get rushed out the door. We've seen Cyberpunk 2077. We've seen No Man's Sky at launch. We've witnessed the absolute disaster that happens when a studio pushes a game out before it's ready just to meet some arbitrary deadline that was set years in advance. So on paper, delays make sense. They're supposed to ensure that the final product is polished, complete, and actually worth the wait. But here's the thing. This is the second delay. The second one. And when you start stacking delays on top of delays, it stops being about polish and starts being about something else entirely. It starts raising questions about whether or not the game was ever actually going to be ready for that initial release date in the first place. And the gaming community is rightfully frustrated about this because we've been waiting for GTA 6 for 13 years. 13 years! Grand Theft Auto 5 came out in September 2013. Think about that for a second. When GTA 5 released, we were in a completely different era of gaming. The PlayStation 4 hadn't even come out yet. People were still playing on Xbox 360s. The world was a different place. And now here we are in 2025, still waiting for the next installment. This is officially the longest gap between Grand Theft Auto games in the entire history of the franchise. And sure, Rockstar has been busy with other things. They released Red Dead Redemption 2, which was an absolute masterpiece. They've been maintaining GTA Online, which has been printing money for them like some kind of digital ATM machine. But still, 13 years is an absurdly long time to wait for a sequel to one of the most successful video game franchises in history. The official reasoning from Take-Two, Rockstar's parent company, is that they want to make sure the game is polished. The CEO mentioned that when competitors go to market before something is ready, bad things happen. And that's a fair point. That's a completely reasonable thing to say. Nobody wants another Cyberpunk situation where the game launches in such a broken state that Sony literally pulls it from the PlayStation Store. That was unprecedented. That was a disaster of epic proportions. So I understand the desire to avoid that. But the frustration from the community isn't about wanting a broken game. The frustration is about the lack of transparency and the pattern of overpromising and underdelivering. When you announce a release date, people plan around that. They get excited. They mark it on their calendars. They start budgeting for it. And then when you delay it once, okay, people understand. But when you delay it a second time, especially after already pushing it back several months, it feels like the initial date was just completely made up. It feels like they threw a dart at a calendar and said, yeah, that looks good, without actually having any idea whether or not the game would be ready by then. And the community response has been exactly what you'd expect. People are upset. They're tired of waiting. They're tired of the delays. Social media has absolutely been flooded with memes and complaints about this. Some people are joking that we'll get GTA 7 before we get GTA 6 at this point. Others are saying they'll be playing this game in retirement homes. And while those are obviously exaggerations, they speak to a real sense of exhaustion that the fan base is feeling right now. There's also this growing concern in the community about what this means for Rockstar as a company. Because if we're being honest, this delay doesn't exactly inspire confidence. When a game gets delayed multiple times, it usually means one of two things. Either the scope of the project was way too ambitious from the start and they're struggling to actually deliver on everything they promised, or there are serious development issues behind the scenes that they're not talking about publicly. Neither of those scenarios is particularly reassuring for people who've been waiting over a decade for this game. And speaking of the community, if you're someone who's been following the saga and want to stay updated on all the latest gaming news, delays, and industry drama, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Hit that like button if you're as frustrated about this delay as I am, because we're all in this together at this point. Now, let's talk about the financial side of this for a second, because it's actually pretty wild. The market took a massive hit when the first delay was announced earlier this year. We're talking about a $2.7 billion hit to the gaming industry. That's billion, with a B. That's an incomprehensible amount of money, and that was just from the first delay. This second delay is probably going to cause even more financial turbulence. Stock prices are going to fluctuate, investors are going to be nervous, and the entire gaming landscape for 2026 is going to shift because of this one game. But here's where it gets interesting. Despite all the delays, despite all the frustration, Grand Theft Auto 6 is still estimated to earn around $10 billion over its lifetime. That's an absolutely staggering amount of money. That would make it one of the most profitable entertainment products ever created, not just in gaming, but in all of entertainment. And that's probably part of why Rockstar feels comfortable delaying it. They know that no matter when this game comes out, people are going to buy it. The demand is there. The anticipation is through the roof. So from a business logic, why rush it? Why risk releasing a broken product when you know that waiting a few more months isn't going to significantly impact sales? But that business logic, while sound, doesn't really address the human element here. It doesn't address the fact that there are millions of people who have been waiting patiently for over a decade to play this game. People who grew up playing GTA 5 are now adults with jobs and responsibilities. Some of them have kids now, and they're still waiting for the next game? That's crazy to think about. Speaking of added layers of complexity, that controversy about the 30 to 40 employees who were let go from Rockstar UK, the one where Take-Two claims confidentiality violations but the union says union busting, we covered that entirely in a dedicated video. If you want the real story behind the working conditions and potential internal issues that might be contributing to these delays, you absolutely have to check out that video on our channel. I'll put a card up right here so you know exactly what to click on. And you know what? Maybe I'm being too harsh here. Maybe Rockstar is genuinely just trying to make sure they deliver the best possible product. Maybe they looked at the game in its current state and realized it genuinely needed more time. Maybe they're learning from the mistakes of other studios and trying to avoid a disastrous launch. All of that is possible. In fact, it's probably true to some extent. But the problem is, at a certain point, the delays start to feel endless. At a certain point, people stop caring about the reasons and just want to play the game they've been promised. And we're rapidly approaching that point with GTA 6. The goodwill is starting to run out, the patience is wearing thin, and every additional delay is going to make it harder for Rockstar to maintain the hype and excitement that they've built up over the past few years. The gaming industry as a whole is going to feel the effects of this delay too. November 2026 is now going to be dominated by GTA 6. Any other game that was planning to release around that time is probably going to reconsider. Nobody wants to go up against Grand Theft Auto. It's a juggernaut. It's going to consume all the oxygen in the room. So we're going to see a reshuffling of release schedules across the entire industry because of this one game. And ultimately, that's what this comes down to. GTA 6 is such a massive deal, such an important release, that everything else has to work around it. It's the kind of game that only comes around once in a generation. And that's both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because when it finally does come out, it's probably going to be incredible. But it's a curse because the weight of expectation is so heavy that Rockstar is probably terrified of disappointing people. So where does this leave us? Well, we wait. Again. We mark November 19th, 2026 on our calendars, and we hope that this is actually the real release date. We hope that there won't be a third delay. We hope that when the game finally does come out, it lives up to the decade plus of hype and anticipation. And maybe, just maybe, it will. Maybe GTA 6 will be so good that all of this waiting will have been worth it. Maybe it'll be the kind of game that defines a generation and makes us forget all about these delays. Or maybe it won't. Maybe it'll just be a really good game that we all enjoy for a while before moving on to the next thing. Either way, we're going to find out in November 2026. Assuming, of course, that there isn't another delay. At this point, I'm not making any assumptions. I'm not getting my hopes up. I'm just going to sit here, patiently waiting, like everyone else who's been on this journey for the past 13 years. The frustration from the community is real, and it's justified. People have every right to be annoyed by this. They've been patient for over a decade, and they're being asked to be patient for even longer.
But at the end of the day, there's not much we can do except wait and see what happens. Rockstar is going to do what Rockstar does, and we're all just along for the ride. So yeah, GTA 6 has been delayed again. It's now coming out in November 2026. The community is frustrated, the market is reacting, and we're all just sitting here wondering if this is actually the last delay or if we're going to be having this same conversation again in 6 months. Only time will tell. That's about it. See ya.